Hi guys, this is Agnes from the Study in Hungary Center in Pretoria, and today I have a very exciting video for you. I have a lot of requests through email and social media about the scholarship interview for the Stipendium Hungaricum Hungarian Scholarship. So I went right to the source, to the International Scholarships Department within the Department of Higher Education and Training, and I found out from the interviewers themselves what it takes to ace the scholarship interview. So listen to this video and take notes and get yourself ready for the interview. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I upload videos continuously, interviews with alumni, and useful videos and tips on studying in Hungary. And also hit the like button if you enjoy this video. It's going to be packed with a lot of information and useful tips for acing the Stipendium Hungaricum Hungarian Government Scholarship interview. Stick around because I also have a free cheat sheet for you that will help you prepare for the interview itself. So let's hit it.
Hello, my name is Ruth Roberts. I'm the Director for International Scholarships at the Department of Higher Education and Training.
And my name is Wendy Adams. I'm Deputy Director at International Scholarships, Department of Higher Education and Training.
So we do the interviews because we want to assess how the candidates respond to our questions, and we have specific questions that are geared towards allowing us to get to know the reasons behind applying for the scholarship, as well as the goals for the future, and to look at the readiness of being able to cope with studying abroad.
So we've been interviewing candidates since 2014 for the scholarship program. So we've got plenty of experience of the do's and don'ts, and we're hoping that this video is going to assist applicants for the Hungarian scholarship with better preparing themselves for the scholarship, which in turn would increase the chances of you being selected.
So normally the interview, it's not a very long interview. We take about 15 minutes, and it's a panel of 3 normally that will sit, and each panel member will get an opportunity to ask some questions. And each question is designed to get a specific kind of answer from the candidate so that it helps us to make the assessment at the end of the day.
So one of the best ways to prepare for the interview is I would advise you to read over your application, because if you understand what you've told us, you're not going to spend too much time in the interview trying to explain why you want to go to Hungary. A lot of our questions emulate from what you've written in the application form. So sometimes we find students would write one thing, and by the time we're interviewing them, you sort of think, did you write this, or did you get someone help you fill in the application form? Because what you're telling us and what you've written are 2 completely different things. So always read over your application form right before the interview as a way to prepare.
That's so important. And I think, preparing for the interview is probably the most important thing. Don't just think you can go in there and wing it. If you can't remember what universities you've applied for in Hungary, then we're going to think that you're not serious about your application. And understanding, knowing why you want to go there, and being able to demonstrate clearly to us why you want to go there.
Yeah, do research on the country that you want to study at. On a few occasions we've had students who applied for a scholarship at a different country and were not selected. And they come to us and tell us, this is my second option, so I didn't get it, and now I'm just here because I didn't want to, but actually that doesn't motivate us, because you're basically saying, my first choice was this country and I didn't get into it, and this is my third option, so I'm just doing it because I want to study abroad. That's really not motivating us, why you've chosen this country. For postgraduate students, it's so important that you know your university. You touch base with the university, you've identified potential supervisors. A lot of the time students will write to us saying, I can't find the supervisors who we share the same interests with. So if you want to do a PhD and we're interviewing you and you haven't even found a supervisor at the university you claim to identify, we look at you and think, have you really thought about this PhD journey? Because it's quite a senior degree and you haven't really done the research on the university you want to go to or identified a potential supervisor. That's definitely going to decrease the chances of you being nominated.
The other thing people often do is when they say, you ask them, why did you choose this particular university? And either they don't really know, or they say because it's a top university. And that answer is always so generic that it's not showing that you've done some research, that there's a particular program that you're interested in at that university. The answer is just too generic for us to be able to assess and believe that you want this scholarship.
Yeah, that's true. Identifying the strengths of the university you want to go to against the program that you want to apply, that you're applying for, is very important, because it shows us that not only is it a top university, but you've picked it because you realize that they're strong in computer science, engineering, and this is what you want to look at in terms of fourth industrial revolution, for example. So it makes you sound more prepared, and you come across as someone who really knows why they want to go abroad and their plans for returning back to South Africa, and how they're planning on using the sets of skills that they would have acquired in that country. Because it's very important for us to see that, have you thought about it from a long-term perspective, why you want to go and how you plan on using the skills when you come back. Particularly right now, we have a issue of higher unemployment in the country. So if you can think of how you want to use the networks that you've made in Hungary, and how you're planning on using that for research, for setting up something small for yourself that will help you generate income. So just always think out the box. It shouldn't just be about, I want to go and get a qualification and come back.
That's true. And also because the department or the Hungarian government, we don't find employment for those who get the scholarships. So it's important to know that when you're applying for the scholarship, you're doing it with a bigger purpose in mind, and that you have thought about those long-term plans for yourself, because no one else is going to do that for you.
Yeah. One of the questions we sometimes receive from students when at the end of the interview is, are you going to find me a job when I'm done? No, we're not. It just not within our scope of work. So we want you to start thinking creatively of how you want to use the degree when you come back.
And maybe not just to find employment, but to create employment.
That's true.
And the great thing about the Hungarian education system is that it gives a lot of practical experience to students. We found that many of the scholarship recipients have had internship opportunities, or they've gone into companies and they've had that practical experience, so that when they come back, they're quite well prepared to enter the workforce.
It's reporting season now from our students, and I'm busy reading quarterly reports, and a lot of our students that are in Hungary are reporting about the practical exposure that they're getting in Hungarian companies, and it's a requirement for some of their degrees, which is great, because you're not just coming back with a piece of paper, you're coming back with that practical experience, which sets you apart from a graduate who had just gone through school from first year to their last year of their studies. So you could be coming in with that international exposure into a global company, and a new set of skills that you would be using when you're starting your career.
One of the things that needs to come out in your interview is what sets you apart as a candidate, because it's a competitive process. So there's a limited number of scholarships that are available, and we have to choose the best candidates to send. And so you need to be able to demonstrate to us why you should be chosen over somebody else. Normally the candidates that we've selected have demonstrated some kind of independence, because remember that going abroad to study will mean long periods of time away from home. It means that you'll be having to be completely independent, cooking for yourself, managing your own time, making sure that you go to classes when you're supposed to. There'll be nobody to make you do the things that you're supposed to be doing. So we need to choose people who are responsible and capable of spending long periods of time away from home.
This is particularly for undergraduate students. Time management is so important, and during the interview you need to demonstrate to us a sense of independence, because it's the first time you're away from family sometimes. It's the first time you're away from teachers. Lecturers are not going to pester you on, did you attend class? So you need to show us in the interview that you're capable of being independent, managing yourself enough, and if you know your why and you can demonstrate that to us, we most likely going to select you, because you're saying, I've identified Hungary as a study destination, and this is the program, and this is how I see it fitting into my future plans. It makes it much easier for us to see that, okay, although you are 18, 19 years old, you're very independent. You're quite mature for someone your age. So yeah, just know your why when you come into the interview. It makes it much easier for us to sort of believe in everything that you're telling us as a motivation for you to study.
And be on time for the interview, because if you're late, then we're not going to believe you when you say that you're a punctual person.
That's true. We've had students arrive an hour late and tell us about taxis, and that's not going to fly. If you're running late, it's your responsibility to inform us before the interview starts that you're running late. Can you be rescheduled to a later time? And if you say no, we have a right to say no because you have a tight schedule. We can move you to a different date. But when you just show up late and think we're not going to see you, go by unnoticed and squeeze yourself in after the next candidate, it just sets a bad impression. But also just about being on time, the way you dress.
Oh, yes, that's so important.
It's so important. We've had students walk in chewing gum, with beanies, with torn t-shirts,
caps on backwards.
Yes, torn jeans. Remember, first impressions last, and the first thing anyone will ever notice about you is how you appear before you speak. So for the guys, try avoid t-shirts with holes. And I know sometimes as students you don't have the funds, but you can button up shirts from a friend. For the girls, try avoid wearing jeans, anything that is too revealing, because when you're sitting in an interview and your dress is too short and you're continuously pulling it down, your mind is distracted now because your focus is on this dress that you're trying to pull down and you're no longer paying attention to the panelists. So wear something that you're comfortable in and that you would deem professional.
No, you don't need to wear a suit.
Yeah.
But at least show us or demonstrate through what you're wearing
true.
that you take the opportunity seriously.
That's true.
I think also for me the interview is one thing, but the way that the candidate interacts with us during the whole application process is also important, because if someone has been rude to the officials that are setting up the interview, for example, then they're probably going to let us know that it's been difficult to engage with this person, that they've been rude, and it does affect our assessment of the character of a person.
There have been instances where students change their numbers. Applicants will change their numbers during the application process. Then it becomes a bit difficult for us to get hold of you to confirm the interview, because we can confirm it on email, but a day or two before the interview actually takes place, we're usually going to contact you and just find out that we're still on track with everything that we had confirmed on email. So if you do change your number, write to us, let us know and update it, because even your email address, check your email. Students have missed their interviews and have said that, I forgot to check my email, I didn't have data, and come to us after the interview period has ended and demanding to be interviewed because they forgot. You know you've applied for a scholarship. The time frames of when everything will be done is on the advert, so just read through it. Set a reminder on your phone to say this is when I should expect feedback, so that you know and you don't miss out on important information like missing documents, because what the Hungarian agency that's responsible for the Scholarship Tempest Foundation is they're going to write to you and say that you're at this stage of your application and this is what is required. If there was a missing document, if something was not clear, maybe your scan was not clear enough of your transcripts, they'll ask you to resubmit. And if you miss that deadline, you may miss out on the opportunity purely because you didn't attend to your emails on time.
Yeah, that's true. I think the other thing we need to address is that not everybody gets interviewed or gets invited to come for an interview. So we get a very high number of applications for these scholarships, and there are a limited number of scholarships, and so we don't interview all applicants. We do a shortlisting process, and the initial shortlisting is actually based on the submission of all the required documents. So anyone who doesn't meet the minimum requirements that are set out in the call for applications is not going to be shortlisted. So make sure that you've submitted all your required documents, that you meet the academic requirements of scholarship, and then you are most likely to be shortlisted. But although there are some cases where if we get a huge number of applications, we will have to limit the number of applicants who are shortlisted.
For interviews. So, for example, if we have 100 scholarships from the Hungarian government and we decide we're only going to interview 180, so even if you're strong, but if you fall as number 181, unfortunately there's a possibility that you may not make it to the interviews, because like Ruth is saying, there's a high number of applicants that we receive, and the process is just very competitive. We have to make sure that we pick the best, because living and studying abroad is not always easy. It can be exciting when you're applying, but a lot of our students, once they get that side, they experience a bit of a shock initially, just because it's so different. But once they get into a rhythm of things, they manage to get out with good results.
So we arrange interviews for candidates. Most of them take place in the main city. So in Pretoria for all applicants who are shortlisted and are living in and around Gauteng. And then we look at the other cities where we have received a large number of applications. So we might go to Cape Town, Durban, Port Elizabeth, depending on the number of applications that we receive in those cities. But for those candidates who are either currently abroad or who are not able to come to one of the venues where we hold the interviews, we do, in special situations like that, arrange to have a Skype interview. But it's important for anyone who's going to do a Skype interview to remember a few of our tips in preparation for having the interview.
So if you're doing a Skype interview, make sure that your network is strong. Make sure that you know where the camera option is. Sometimes we spend 5 to 10 minutes because the person is moving around, they can't find the right background anymore, and they realize, ooh, the light is coming in through the window and we can't see them. Or we're talking them through, where's the camera? And we say, okay, no, go down to the bottom left corner and click here, and that, by the time we actually do start your interview, you come across as unprepared to us because you knew you had a Skype interview. You could have done a trial Skype call with someone, a friend, a colleague, so that you make sure that your Skype account number that you've given us or account handle that you've given us works, firstly. Secondly, you know how to navigate the laptop or phone that you'll be using. Thirdly, and most importantly, is the network. If we are Skype interviewing, if you have a Skype interview and we can't hear you, you keep cutting, it's just, we're gonna lose you. You know, halfway through a very good explanation, your network cuts and you have to start all over again. It can be quite exhausting because we end up taking double the time that we would have ordinarily if you had put in that extra effort before the interview to just prepare yourself. So online technology can sometimes go in directions that we don't really want it to. So to just prepare yourself before the interview and make sure that you know the gadgets that you'll be using and you understand it quite well. You know where the microphone is, how to turn up the volume or turn it down. This year actually we had a Skype interview where a student, we're calling them and then we say turn on the video, they say, oh, I didn't realize you wanted to see me. Then they asked for 5 minutes before they could start the interview because they were not dressed accordingly. Or sometimes we Skype interview students and they just wearing pajamas. We had someone wear freebie t-shirts with one of our South African universities logo on it, and you could see that they thought it's Skype, so and that counts for something. It's still an interview, it's online, but it's still an interview. So the way you dress matters as well for the Skype interview.
That's true. And we always arrange the interview in advance and we give you the time for when we will be calling. So that preparation is important. So we've had students also who we've called and they've been sitting on a taxi and they can't talk and they can't hear what we're saying. So be prepared at the time of the interview and give a little bit of leeway because sometimes the call might come through a little bit after the scheduled time. But the background is also important, what you wear, that you speak clearly. What we would recommend is if you can get to one of the interview destinations, that you do try and make the effort to come and have the interview in person if it's at all possible.
Yeah, that's true. There was a student who was in Kempton Park. They said it was too far and they wanted a Skype interview. I mean, you know, if you're too far, like Polokwane, for example, that makes sense. We could consider having a Skype interview, especially if you're not traveling to the city. But if you're in and around the provinces that we'll be traveling to, just do your best to try and travel to the city that we'll be at.
It also shows that you've taken the opportunity seriously and that you want it. Yeah. One of the things that interview tips always tell candidates that you should ask questions at the end of an interview. And while that is a good idea, there are some mistakes that candidates also make at the end of the interview. So there are some good questions that you can ask. One of them, when it comes to scholarship interviews, might be, what are alumni from the program currently doing, or what has the feedback been on this program from those who are currently in Hungary, for example. But we've also had cases where interview candidates think that it's an opportunity to turn the interview around and interview the panel. So this is not the opportunity to ask the panel questions about their political views, or an opportunity to ask questions that you should already know the answer to. So for example, if the advert, the call for the scholarship has explained exactly why the scholarship is being offered or what the scholarship includes for recipients, don't ask those kind of questions, because then it will also look like you haven't read the call for applications properly and that you haven't prepared sufficiently for the interview. So while you should ask questions and you're welcome to ask questions at the end of the interview, make sure that you think carefully about those questions and that they will enhance the panel's view of you and your assessment of you, and not actually undermine your excellent interview that has almost concluded. We know that coming for an interview can also be a bit of a nerve-wracking experience. So we understand that many of the candidates that come and sit across from the panel are going to be feeling a little bit out of their comfort zone, and we do take that into consideration. But I think the main thing that you can do to try to calm yourself before an interview is to be on time, to prepare yourself, and think about possible questions that might be asked to you, and possible answers that you can give. Take a deep breath and try not to talk too fast, because we've had some candidates who try to just get the interview over with as quickly as possible. But also don't fidget. People who play with their hands a lot or they tap their legs, it distracts from what they're saying during the interview.
Preparation is very important, because if you know why you applied and you've done the research on the country that you're going to, then you're not thrown off guard when they ask you, why have you chosen Hungary as a study destination? You're not thinking, oh, I didn't know the country exists and I came across it a month ago and I was looking for scholarships. Even if that is the case, tell us, after you've read on the country, what is it that attracted you to it? What is it that made you want to complete the application form? Instead of saying, I didn't know about the country and I want to study. That is not strong enough motivation. But if you didn't know and then you've done your research and now you start telling us what is it about Hungary that is at the center of Europe and why you want to be at the center of Europe, and what sort of opportunities do you see yourself being at the heart of Europe and traveling to other parts, research, exchange with other parts of Europe. Think creatively of why you've chosen Hungary as a study destination, instead of just saying, I want to study and this is the only scholarship that is open.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of these tips are applicable not just to the Hungarian scholarship application, but to almost all kinds of interviews that you'll be undertaking, even when it comes to job interviews later on. The preparation side of going for an interview and what to wear, to think about what it is that why it is that you want whatever it is that you've applied for. But I think that we'd like to wish all potential applicants well, and we look forward to seeing you in an interview panel soon.
Wait, don't go just yet. I have created a free cheat sheet or checklist for you that you can use in preparation for your Stipendium Hungaricum scholarship interview. All you have to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the like button, and I will automatically send you this cheat sheet. Thanks for watching.